Technical Essential. Today we will be discussing storage networking and we will getting into Amazon S3. So let's get into it. Learning objectives. Today we will be understanding what is S3, what are the different storage classes we have in S3 and how it works. What are the use cases, right, for these classes. So let's get into it. Introduction to Amazon S3. So simple storage service, right? Very popular service. So when we talk about S3, so again, it is a storage service, right? And it is S3 stands for simple storage service. We call it block storage, right? So sorry, we call it a object store because it stores data right as it is without breaking it into small, say, blocks. So that is why it is a object store. So whatever data you have, right, it will just copy and store as it is, right? But in block store, what happens is, right, it divides the data into small pieces, right, small blocks, and then it stores it, right? So your S3 is not like that. So it offers industry leading, right, scalability and data availability, right, security and performance. Now, near unlimited capacity you get, right, with S3. So store any amount of data, right? So high accessibility also, right? So your data is highly available. You can access them over the web, right? So for each object, you have object level URL, right? Object URL. So you can share that object URL to anybody, right? And they can access that object over the web, right? From anywhere, right? They just need internet connection. So you can access them right over SDKs, right? Programmatically, you can fetch them, right? And you can also access them over CLI. Then you have right, they are serverless. Again, we don't need to manage the underlying server, right? All those storage hardwares or anything, right? We don't have to configure anything. So it is serverless for us, right? No infrastructure to manage. So it will be managed by AWS, right? What we do is we store the data and right we access them when needed, right? So buckets and objects. Now when we say right S3 is an object store, so to store these objects we need to create buckets. So the fundamental container, right, of data. So buckets are the container, right? So these are just like a folder that is holding our object, right? It is a container. So name, right, must be globally unique, right, across all AWS account. I mean, the bucket name that we need to use must be unique, right? We cannot share the same bucket name, right? As already we have seen, right, that it can be accessed over the internet, right, with the object URL. So when we are using the object URL, right, in that URL actually you have, right, the bucket name. So definitely, if multiple users are sharing the same bucket name, right, and definitely it will be an issue, right? There will be confusion, right? So cross connections. So definitely to right avoid such kind of situation. So it is right globally unique. So the objects, right, that is the data and the metadata stored in S3, right? So every object that we upload, right? So the object and its metadata are stored right in this. So each object consists of a key, right? The object name is the key, actually the name, along with the path, right? So if we have right a bucket name, and inside that we just say created a folder, and then we stored our object, right? So the entire right bucket name, the folder, uh, and the object name, right, will be considered as the key, right? So generally, we are the file name, right, is the key, right, in general, right? So it is right. Then the value is the actual data that we are uploading, right? So key. So it is storing it in a key value pair, right? So key will be the name and value will be the object. So whenever we need, right, to access that object, we need to use the key, right? And then metadata, these are name value pairs, right? And all these, right, key values, right? They are in key value pairs, right? So say there is a timestamp, right? So the key will be time, right? Say date and time, and the value will be right corresponding, right, time, right? Then we can say that key will be file, right, size, and the corresponding value, right, for file size will be the actual file size, right? So here you can see up to 5 TB. Now the value that we are storing or the object that we are storing, a single object can, right, be up to 5 TB, right? So that can be the size of a single object, right? You have, just imagine that you have a single file, and the size of that file is 5 TB, right? So that is the maximum file, right, of a single object in S3. Right. Now, again, there is a catch, but okay, we will talk about that later, because in S3 we have multiple classes, right? And this is the standard actually, right, where you have 5 TB of size, right, for a single object. As we move into, right, other classes, right, we will discuss that there is also an exception to that.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, okay, so the durability and the availability, right? So these buckets and the object that we store in these S3 buckets are, right, highly durable. So when we talk about the durability, they are, right, around 11 nines, right, of durability. So if I tell you what it means, generally by 11 nines of durability is that if you store, so imagine, right, that you are storing 1 million, or say 10 million object, right, in your S3 bucket. So over 1,000 years, right, you may lose one object, right? So that is the theoretical, right, figure for your durability, right? So if you're storing millions of objects, right, in 1,000 year, you may lose a single object, right? So definitely, right, it is highly durable, right? So generally in your lifetime, right, in our lifetime, we will not lose, right, any object. So
Yeah, sure.
Amazon S3 is designed for 9, right? That is again in certification they used to ask, right, this question, that what is the, right, total nines in the durability, right, of S3. You need to select 11 nines. So it automatically and, right, stores your data across multiple devices in a, right, minimum of free availability zone within an AWS region, right? Now, when we upload our object, right, and when we are actually creating that bucket, right, so that bucket gets replicated across three or more availability zone in the region, right? So the data that you are uploading, right, is definitely regional, because, right, only user or the customer, right, they have access to move their data, right? So it is our responsibility, right, to select the region and, right, where we want to store it. But within the region, right, AWS, what they do is they replicate your data across multiple availability zone, right? So when they replicate your data, right, across, right, multiple availability zone, definitely what happens is, right, your data availability and durability gets increased, right? Because at say device level failures, right, will not, right, say destroy your data, because it is replicated, right, across multiple devices. And again, if even if your AZs are failing, so still your data will be intact, right? Because it is copied across multiple, right, three or more availability zone, right? So if you want to replicate, say, your data across, right, multiple regions, then you need to explicitly actually do that, right? AWS will never move your data from one region to another region, right? So even if an entire AZ goes offline, right, your data remains intact, right, and available. So that is uh, how your data becomes highly available. And coming to security fundamentals of S3. So the access control, you have IAM policies to control the identity based policy, that is user level permissions, right? So then you have bucket policy for resource level rules, right? So here in identity IAM policies, what we do is we attach identity based policies, right? So the IAM policies are the identity based policy that we attach to an identity, right? And the bucket policies are resource based policy, so that we attach to a resource, right? And in that resource we need to select the principal who can access that resource, right? That is a resource level policy. Then public access block. So by default public access is blocked, right? That means your buckets are private by default, right? So that safeguards definitely your account. And it is over 90% of the data breach that happens in cloud is because of misconfiguration of these rules, misconfiguration of policy, misconfiguration of access, right control, and allowing public read access to your sensitive buckets. So these are the common reasons why there is a lot of data breach happening. Right now was used to actually previously they didn't use to block the public access by default. So and the no no sorry, they used to block the public access, buckets were always private, but they didn't use to implement the encryption by default, right? But now when the data is at rest, when they're not moving, they have uh, enabled the encryption, the server side encryption is enabled now by default. Earlier it was an optional setting, but now it is mandatory, because of this, So the encryption, in transit. So whenever you are accessing your S3 buckets, your objects, it is You will be accessing it over TLS SSL. That means your data is encrypted, right? So at rest, it is using SSE S3. So it is S3 managed keys. So this is the default encryption that AWS provides, So and at rest, we can also go for SSE KMS, Key Management Service. Also, we were seeing that KMS in EBS block, So when I showed you that when we enable that encryption, we need to choose from KMS keys, right? So you can also have your KMS keys and you can use those keys for your S3, right? So these are customer managed keys, via KMS. So coming to storage classes. Now different storage classes that we have to optimize the performance and the cost. So choosing the right class based on access frequency and retrieval speed. Now definitely the first one is S3 standard, right? So it gives you millisecond access, for frequently accessed data, right? So when when we see when we say frequently accessed data, that means the data that you are accessing, maybe every month,
Oh, okay.
right? So that will be considered as frequent, right? So if you have requirement to access that data every month, then you should go for S3 standard. Definitely, you will be getting millisecond, that means instant access to your data, right? Then you have S3 intelligent tiering. Intelligent tiering, what it does is it will automatically move your data based on your access pattern. So if you are using it frequently, it will store it in your S3 standard class, But if you're not accessing it frequently, it will store it in some infrequent access class, right? So it is based on your access pattern. So what happens is there will be some right automation cost, right? But definitely when it is not being used or accessed, it will save your cost, right? For storage, right? So when you have right unknown patterns, right access patterns for your data, you can go for intelligent tiering, right? So after that you have S3 standard IA, right? IA is infrequent access. So this is again right when right you are not frequently accessing your data, right? Maybe right you are accessing your data in right every 3 months, right? You can go for standard right IA, right? So for long-lived, right, and infrequently accessed data, you can go for standard IA. So definitely the cost for right IA will be less than the S3 standard, right? The storage cost, right, will be less. But
Okay.
yep, and then you have S3 one zone IA, right? So one zone IA is again infrequent access, but this is the only storage, right, class that stores your data in a single availability zone, one zone. Rest, right, all other classes will store your data across three or more availability zone, right? So one zone is cost effective but stores data in one zone, right? One AZ. So that is so definitely you should have right access. Say you want to just have a secondary storage, right, for your data. So for that you can go for right one zone where you don't need right high availability of that data because you already have the duplicate, you already have the copy right in some other location, right? So then we have the S3 Glacier family, right? Glacier family is again it is a low cost right archive store, right? So when we want to store data for long term, right, very long, 7 years, 10 years, right, more than that. So for that we can go for Glacier because they provide right you the uh, least cost, right, for storage, right? So for long-term retentions. So let us go one by one here. So frequently access and intelligent tiering. S3 standard is right designed for active data, right? That needs high throughput and low latency access. That is giving you millisecond latency. So ideal for websites and big data. Now page, right? So definitely for a static web page or static data, right? That will not change, right? We can host those files directly from S3, right? So it will be better, right? Always to go for S3 standard because, right? It will provide millisecond latency, right, to the data. So mobile application and also for big data, right? It is used as a staging ground, right?
So it's good for real time transaction, like for banking, all those stuff, for quick. Is
Oh,
that correct?
no, not for banking, right? Transactions, because here, right,
Storage.
the website that it will, right, you can host is actually static website,
Oh,
right?
static. Okay, not
Static,
changing. Oh, okay.
not changing, not dynamic, right? Not dynamic. So it will
Not
show
dynamic.
you, right? Yeah, not dynamic. So it will, right? It will be same page for everybody, right?
Ah, okay, okay.
Yes, yes. So then for your S3 intelligent tiering, okay, it is automatically right moving your object between tiers, right? So frequent and infrequent, so based on access pattern. So no retrieval fees, right? So for both standard and intelligent tiering, there will be no retrieval fees, right? So you don't have to pay for right accessing your data, right? And no operational overhead. Definitely you don't have to think about right say moving your data manually right from tier to tier. In intelligent tiering it will be done automatically, right? And that is why when it is done automatically, uh, AWS applies right a automation charge right for that, but that is again very small, right, in comparison with the say cost that it can save, right, when it is moving from one tier to another tier. So the infrequent access tier, we have standard infrequent access, that is data stored right across three plus availability zones, right? So lower storage price definitely, but charges per GB retrieval fee, right? So only right these two classes, that is S3 standard and S3 infrequent, right, your intelligent tiering will not have retrieval fees, right? But for all other classes, there will be some retrieval cost, right? Definitely the storage cost will go down for infrequent access and glacier, but there will be some retrieval cost, right? Because definitely if you are taking that advantage of low storage cost, right, and maybe right because of that what you are doing is you are accessing your data frequently, so definitely to restrict that, right, they will implement that retrieval cost, right? So definitely these are for right your infrequent access data, right? So if you are accessing them infrequently, so definitely you can, right, you can pay that retrieval cost, right? But if you start using them frequently, so definitely you are actually right, you should go for frequent access, right, tier, right? So per GB retrieval fee will be applied here again for one zone IA, right? So data is stored in only one availability zone, and it is around 20% cheaper, right, than the standard IA, right? So idle for secondary backups. So definitely, right, secondary backups are fine, right? If even if you lose, right, that AZ, right, if you lose that availability zone, still you must have, right, your primary data, right? You must have that so that you can recreate, right, that data again, right? Then coming to the Glacier, right, archive family. So Glacier instant retrieval. So herein we have, right, multiple options. So number one, it is Glacier instant retrieval, right? So Glacier instant retrieval, right, is the archive store, but it gives you millisecond access to your archive, right? If you need, right, say you have right configured disaster recovery, right? So definitely in right whenever there is a disaster, right, that is striking, so you need to restore your data quickly, right, so that your business is not right not getting interrupted, right? So in that case, but definitely your disaster is not frequent, right? Disaster will not happen right frequently, so you don't have to store that in standard, right, frequent accesses. You can archive, right, you can archive, but you can also go for, right, instant retrieval, that is, right, you will get millisecond access to your archives, right? And this is the storage class, that is the Glacier, right? Here the single object can be up to 40 terabyte. So in standard, right, classes, it is actually 5 terabyte, right, for your single object. For Glacier, it goes up to 40 terabyte, right, 40, right? So
Okay.
that is can be the size, right, of a single, say, archive, right, in S3. So then we have another option, that is Glacier Flexible Retrieval, right? Now in flexible retrieval, actually it offers three options, right? Number one is expedited, number two standard, number three bulk, right? So in expedited retrieval option, so it you can get access to your data within minutes, right? It will take from 1 to 5 minutes to retrieve your data, not millisecond, right? So you need to, right, first you need to restore your data. It will take, right, from 1 to 5 minutes, right, to restore. And then for standard, it will take, right, around 3 to 5 hours, right, 3 to 5 hours to retrieve your data. And for bulk, it will take 5 to 12 hours to retrieve your data, right? So that is a Glacier flexible retrieval. So definitely when you go for expedited, it will, right, it will cost more, right, than your standard and bulk, right? Then
That's good.
the last, yep, yep. So the last one that we have in Glacier family, right, that is Glacier Deep Archive. So this will provide the lowest cost, right? So here you can see, right, for example, 0.0099 per GB, right? So that is the storage cost for, right, your Glacier Deep Archive. But here you see the retrieval time, right? So when you retrieve, right, that data, It will take right 12 to 48 hours right to retrieve it, right? So you need to wait for this much time, and definitely right you will be getting the lowest right you will be paying the lowest cost right for storage. So right, so if your data is right not required instantly, you can wait for right data to retrieve. So then definitely this will be the right best option, right? If the cost is the only factor, right, but not the speed right, at which you are accessing. So then deep archive right will save a lot of cost, right? So let us quickly compare these classes again here. In this table, you can see the standard, right? Durability, right, is 11 nines. Availability. So this availability you see, right? It changes, right? So availability is something, right? That is to do with your downtime, right? Now, when we say 99.99% availability, that means whenever we try to access, right, say our object, it will be available 99.99% of the time, right? So if we say divide that say in a year, right, or say in a month also, right? So we can just say convert, right, 24 hours into minutes, right, or even right, so we multiply that 24 with 30 to get right the availability in a month, right? And from that we will just get 99.99% out, right? So that time will be the total availability, right? Or you can say the available right duration. And uh, similarly, the opposite of this, right? So if you just deduct 99.99 from 100, right? So what you will be getting is the downtime, right? So that is here definitely it is 0.01, right? 0.01% is the downtime, right? So so during that downtime, what happens is you are trying to reach, right? You are trying to access your object, but you are not able to access it, right? So that is the downtime. So again, you can see the availability zone, right? It will store it across three or more availability zone, and the minimum duration is nothing, right? There's no minimum duration for your ST standard and intelligent tiering, right? There is no minimum duration, but for standard IA, right? One zone, Glacier Deep Archive, for them you have right minimum duration, right? So standard IA, you must keep right your data for 30 days in that class, right? For one zone, you need to keep it for 30 days, right? For Glacier Deep Archive, you need to store it for at least 180 days, right? To get that highest, right, discount, or not, will not say discount, right? The low storage cost, right? You need to store it for 180 days. Now, if you're not storing, right, your data for 180 days, right, in this deep archive, suppose what you did is you thought, okay, let me, I need to store my data for, say, 60 days, right? So let me go for Glacier Deep Archive, right? And after 60 days, I will just I will delete my data and I will be getting, right, low cost storage. But this will not happen, right? Because when you are deleting your data in 60 days, that means you're not fulfilling, right, this minimum duration. So the Glacier Deep Archive rates will not apply, right? So that is a thing that we need to right keep in mind. So the other Glacier right option that we have, right, the Glacier instant retrieval, the Glacier flexible retrieval, right? So those are right where you need to store your data for at least 90 days, right? So if you are storing your data for 90 days, then those rates will be applicable, right? And if you are not even storing it for 90 days, right, and you are just storing for say 50 days, right, then definitely your standard IA will be applicable, right, where you have right minimum 30 days of uh, minimum duration, right? So then the cost trends, the life cycle management. Now the data that we are storing in S3, right? We can use a life cycle manager, right, to actually manage the life cycle of the data, right, that we are storing. So here we can automate, right, your cost optimization by defining life cycle rules, right, to trans transition, right, your object between classes or expire them entirely. Now, this lifecycle management is different than what we had, right, in that intelligent tiering, right? So, intelligent tiering, right, if we select that is the storage class, right, that we can select and it will do everything automatically for us, right? But here we have another option, right, that is the lifecycle rule. So where we can actually write that rule, right, that okay, what we want to do with the data right after, right, these days, right? So maybe after 30 days I want to move it right to infrequent access. Maybe after 90 days I want to move my data to glacier, right, class. So I can set that life cycle rule for my data. And maybe right after a year, I just want to permanently delete that data. So in that life cycle rule, I can right create such rule, and it will automatically manage right my data life cycle. So I don't have to manually right remember right that okay, I need to delete that data. I need to move that data from this class to this class, right? I don't have to do these manually. So expiration a- right actions. So permanent delete right logs after say 90 days. So if you set right whatever days right in the life cycle policy, so that will right apply, and it will automatically do that for you, right? So this is how you can manage, right? Definitely, right, when you have a terabyte of data, right, and manually right manage that is really very difficult, right? That okay, I need to find out, right, okay, which data right is say older right than 365 days. First I need to figure that out, and then I will go and manually I will delete them, right? So definitely that is right, not other way. We can set right life cycle policies, and definitely it should be predictable, right, that okay, after 365 I have no use of that data, right? So I don't need to store that. They are say right expired kind of thing, right? So then you can delete it, right? The use cases for these classes, right? So secure right disaster recovery. So definitely leverage right your S3 as a reliable offsite backup, right, for your on-premises or cloud data. So cross-region replication, right, for regional safety. So you are also go for CRR, right, cross-region replication. That is, you can store your data right in other region, right, to actually make your data even right, say, available, right, in times of say the entire region going off, right? So for that, we have the option for CRR, right, where we can create cross region replication, right, for your data. Now we have another option, right, that is versioning to protect against, right, accidental deletes or ransomware. Now, if we use versioning, what happens is, right, we create a new version, right, whenever we try to say overwrite a file, right? So definitely by default, what happens if you use the same key, right? If you use the same key, that is the same file name, right? Say you have a file called file one, right, in your S3 bucket. Now you uploaded the right file with the same file name. Maybe you have different content, right? Maybe you have different content. You just uploaded that right file with file one. So what it will do is it will override that existing file. That means you will lose your previous file by default. That is what happens by default, right? So you lose your first data, but right, definitely you had different data, right, for this new file, right? So in this situation, right, what you can do is you can enable versioning for your bucket. So if you enable versioning for your bucket, then instead of overwriting that existing file, what it will do is it will create a new version of that file, right? It will just add a new version ID, right? So you can have right both the files, right? You can have both the files with different versions. So that is again right a secure right way to actually right store data. And save right from accidental deletion. Then you have S3 object. Yes, Wilson, you're saying something?
No, yeah, so that's good. So it's gonna
Yep.
protect accidental deletion. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And also when you are actually deleting the files, right? So when so you delete when your versioning is enabled, right? And you delete a file, so at that time also the file will actually not get deleted, right? It will show you that it got deleted, but in reality, right, you can restore that file, right? Because it puts a delete marker on that file, but it never deletes that file when the versioning is enabled, right? So you can restore that again, right, by deleting the delete marker itself, right? So again, those are we will see them, right? Then we have S3 object lock, right? Worm. So worm
Sorry,
is yes,
question. So the
yes,
versioning,
please.
so it's not enabled by default. We have to enable it. Is that right?
Yes, yes, correct.
So if we delete and we enable, versioning is already enabled. So like how long will the data be retained after we
It will be
delete?
retained. It will be
Oh, forever.
retained.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
forever. Yeah, because it will have that delete marker on that data. Okay. So
Oh, okay.
as
Okay.
yeah, when we delete that delete marker, then we get our object back. Right.
Okay.
So we will see all those
Sure.
things, right? So in the practical session, yep. And then we have S3 object lock, right? So this is for retention and compliance, right? So write once and read many. So definitely sometimes what we want, right, for definitely for data integrity, right? So what we want is, okay, whatever log files we have, whatever logs we are actually storing here, right, in S3, we don't want anybody to modify them, right? So to make sure that right they are compliant, right, to all those say standards and everything, right? So we implement, right, these object locks, right? So this will enable once, that means it will get created once, and then only read will be right available, only, right, you can read but you cannot modify, right? So this can be enabled for your uh, objects, right? Then we have, right, the other use case, right, that is your static website hosting. So in static website hosting, you see high performance, right, configured S3 to host HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right, and images. You can host these files, right, directly on your S3 bucket, right? So static website is, right, that is having, right, say right, static content that will not change, right, for any user. So the dynamic pages, right, will change, right, and right, based on user, and right, that can display you different things, and they will have logics and everything, right? So here in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right, these are actually browser side say uh, execution files, right? So in here in static web page, what happens, right? The scripts that we are actually using, right, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, so this gets executed at, right, the user side, right, that is on the browser, right? So what happens is when they open, right, that HTML page, right, so the server send, right, that HTML page to the user's browser, and there actually it gets executed, right? But in dynamic pages, it is getting executed at the server side, right? So at the server, actually it gets executed, and we see, right, the pages after that, right? So here for S3, just a second. So we don't have to, right, think about, right, no, it's easy to instances needed here, right? So meaning no operating system patching, right, or scaling worries. So it can automatically scale, right, your resource, right, based on demand. So scale and cost automatically scales, right, to right, handle millions of concurrent users, right? So combined with Amazon CloudFront, so definitely we can, right, we can create distributions of our S3 bucket, to cache the content, right, close to customers, right, using the cloud front, right, that is the content delivery network. So it delivers content, right, with ultra low latency, right, globally. So you can create cloud front distributions. You can select that, okay, where you want to distribute your, right, data. So that will give, right, low latency access to your data. Okay, so in summary and key takeaways, S3 is highly durable, right? 11 nines of durability we have, right, for object stored, right? So service for any data type. So it doesn't matter, right, what is the type of the data. So whatever object you store, it will be having, right, 11 nines of durability. Organizes data in buckets, right? Buckets are the container, and the objects are the file, that is the actual data that we are storing, right? So we have multiple storage classes that allow you to balance, right, performance and cost, right? So from, right, your access, right, frequently accessed data, then you have infrequent access data, right, and you have archives, right? So use lifecycle policies to automate, right, cost saving data transitions and the lifecycle management, right, of your data from, right, the creation to the deletion. It supports your critical, right, business needs, namely backup, right, website hosting and data lakes. So highly, right, used, right, for data staging, right, for big data analytics, right. And in more advanced topics we will be discussing that, right, you can actually run analytics directly on top of your S3 bucket, right? So for that there is a service called Athena, right? So you can use Athena to run SQL queries on top of your data, right, on your bucket, right? So, all right. Okay, getting to the first question. In Amazon S3, what is the fundamental container used to store object?
Buckets,
Buckets. Great. Okay. Number two, what is the maximum size allowed for a single S3 object?
5 terabytes
5
inside.
terabyte.
Yeah.
Yep, that is correct. So yes, right, when it is not specifying, right, that archive, it is, if it is specifying, right, that, okay, what is the maximum size allowed, right, for Glacier, right, S3 Glacier, then you can go for 40 terabyte, right? But in standard, right, other than Glacier, it is 5 terabyte, right, per object. Okay. So, which storage class is the most cost effective, right, for data that is rarely accessed and requires a retrieval time of several hours?
I think it's a S3 Glacier deep archive.
Deep archive, very good. That is great. Yes, that's correct. And number four, you are hosting a static website, right, on S3. Which set of files can S3 serve, right, directly?
The hosting is static, okay, website, which is not dynamic. Okay, on S3, which set of file can S3 use? I'm not sure. I think it's Java Spring, but I can't recall. I think you talk about that again. I can't recall. I can't recall. I know you mentioned about JavaScript that time. Yeah.
Yeah, it is actually B, right? HTML,
B.
CSS, and JavaScript. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes. So these are client-side executable files.
For
So
website. Okay.
HTML, yeah,
CMS.
client
Okay.
side.
Sure.
Yeah, these files get executed on, right, our browser actually, in our web browser. Right.
Uh,
Yes, yes. Great, great. All right.